On the same topic of college football, the Big 12 commissioner, Brent Yormark, I think I said his name right, Yormark, had some interesting comments when talking about his conference, saying that he aims it to be the number one conference in America and that rumored schools potentially could join the Big 12 in the ACC, being Florida State, Clemson, and Miami. This is a conference, Ben, that added 4 teams last year with BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF. This year they added 4 more of those Pac-12 schools. So this is a conference that's used to adding schools year in and year out. How much do you buy the rumors of potentially Florida State, Clemson, and Miami coming to the Big 12?
Oh, I buy it. And I believe it's going to happen at some point. Now, maybe not this year because you have the grant of rights over at the ACC that you can't just get out of. Like, people have to understand that they still have to serve those contracts. But the Big Ten has already said, we're good, and the SEC has already said, we're good.
Which shocks me about the SEC because I thought Florida State, Clemson, and Miami would fit well with the SEC.
But they said we're good. They said, we're fine. We don't need to split up more of our money for you when we don't need to. And so the Big 12 can literally double the amount of money that the ACC is giving them. It's going to happen at some point. And it's going to save the Big 12 as well. Because right now the Big 12 is just a life preserver, right? Because they're not the Big 10. They're not the SEC, but they're still interesting enough. There's a lot of teams. And so now you have an idea with the Big 12. It's already easily the best basketball conference. You can add, which are basically replacements to Oklahoma and Texas, to come to the Big 12. And it doesn't matter. Region doesn't matter anymore. Location doesn't matter. That's not anything we're worried about. It's a great fit. It's going to happen at some point, and it's so nice to have a Big 12 commissioner that is continuously working around the clock to make this conference as profitable as it can be, whether it's putting logos on their jerseys and being, advantageous enough to want to go get other teams. And it's not, and I don't think it should stop there. I don't think it should. I think Brett Yormark should go after Duke and North Carolina. Just add it to the basketball fold. Why not?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that too because it's interesting because when we about a couple months ago, if you had to rank the conferences that are I guess stout, that are strong, powerful, that aren't moving anywhere, SEC, Big Ten are on the top, and then you kind of thought when the Pac-12 was gone, okay, ACC is probably the next to go, and then eventually the Big 12 would go after that. Now hearing all this, I think if the Big 12 could add even more teams, like you mentioned for basketball too, Florida State, Clemson, Miami. You look at the conference, you say the Big 12, I don't know about the 2 power conferences later on. I think it could be 3, and with the ACC on the flip side of it, if the ACC loses those schools, I've heard people say, they could add Oregon State and Washington State. I disagree. I think that conference could go down, but what schools from the ACC would other conferences go and grab? Like you mentioned, UNC Duke would also be intriguing, even for the Big Ten or the SEC in terms of basketball.
Yeah.
Stanford and Cal would be interesting in terms of academics. SMU is an interesting school just based on money. But other than that, you look at the ACC conference and you look at those schools, it's like you mentioned, the Big Ten and SEC don't want Clemson, Florida State, and Miami. Are they going to want Pittsburgh, NC State, and some of those other schools? Do you know what I'm trying to say, though, from the ACC perspective? So if that happens, what do you see the ACC going through to try to stay relevant and try to stay in a conference? Or are they going to be the next conference to leave like the Pac-12?
If the ACC doesn't look – first off, the ACC is already behind. The ACC should have looked at the Pac-12 and said, what the bleep are we doing? The Big 12, for some godforsaken reason, was the only conference that said, oh, we should probably be proactive about this and see around corners. The ACC has acted completely immature when it comes to this, and the Pac-12 as well. They already need a Hail Mary to save this conference. I mean, they need a ridiculous television deal to save this conference. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to lose these teams. I think they're already, for lack of a better term, I think they're already just screwed. They are. Yeah, and so at some point when they get these teams, it's going to be those 3 power conferences. You're absolutely right.
Because the Pac-12, what they're going to want to do is they're going to try to accumulate enough money to persuade other schools to come to them. That's so much money grabbing 10 more teams to go to the Pac-12, whereas for the Pac-12 it might be best for an Oregon State, Washington State to go elsewhere.